Hey everyone, it's Jean-A from the Last Stitch. This summer I was able to visit one of my favorite cities, namely New York. It was the third time. I was there once. I was in 96, then in 2004, and now in 2019 I was able to finally go back there again. And one of many great things about New York is that it is a wonderful city to shop sewing stuff in. So I did end up doing a trip to the garment district to meet up with some fellow sewists, and I had an absolute blast. And I also got home with, well, not too much, but you know, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So in today's video I will share with you my sewing finds from New York. So to give you a little bit of backstory from my sewing excursion in New York, when I decided to go back to New York, I chatted with Kyle, which is also known as Vacuum the Lawn. She is a sewing blogger, but mostly these days active on Instagram. I will of course link to her in the description section. I do like to try to meet up with some people that I know online when I'm traveling. When it comes to sewing, I'm definitely a little bit disorganized sometimes, and I feel a bit bad now because I should have, you know, be a bit more, how shall I put it, organized with this, you know, organizing like a proper sewing meetup and, you know, just let everyone know that I was in New York. Of course, I was so stressed out, I totally forgot about that. But anyways, I had talked with Kyle that I wanted to meet up, and so we did, and we were also able to be joined by Rhode and Carol, which is also two New York sewists. So we met up at the wonderful store of Metro Textile. It's also called Cashier, or Cashier is the owner of the store. I'm not 100% sure of the different names here, but Metro Textile, I do think it's the official name. It's a wonderful shop that actually has a lot of like factory remains, designer remains, and the prices are unbeatable. Now, for me, living in Sweden, the Swedish krona is absolutely fantastically weak now, so everything in New York is super expensive, but I was still impressed by how much value I would get at the Metro Textile. So I actually ended up with 3 fabrics from that particular shop. The first one is this. It's a silk jersey. Now, silk jersey for me is like finding gold, because that is one fabric that one does struggle a lot with to find here in Sweden. So when he said he had some black silk jersey, I was like, this I need. Now, it's black, but black often works right. So what I plan to do is some type of draped or twist top. It has nice stretch, not too much, but definitely workable. And you know, it's just when you feel it, it's like touching butter. It's such a wonderful hand. And I've had sewn with silk jersey a few times before, always ending up buying them in another country than Sweden. And I've always been absolutely in love with the end result. There's something about silk jersey, right, that it just loves the body, if that makes sense. It's so comfortable to wear, it drapes so beautiful, and it's definitely a step up from rayon, for sure. At least, I mean, I do love my rayon jersey, but silk jersey to me, well, that's just a different level. I can't really explain it, but you know, once you start working with it. And this one is actually quite stable, so I don't think it will be too, knock on wood, nightmarish to work with. We'll see about that, but I was very, very happy to find this gorgeous silk jersey at Metro Textile. And the second fabric I'm going to talk about, well, it's a gorgeous fabric, but I did have some mishaps, which is all my fault. So let's give you a bit of a backstory. I'm first going to show you the fabric before I start to talk about the bad news, because they do happen, right, sometimes. This is a cotton poplin fabric, I think. It has a little bit of stretch. And what I fell in love with it is the absolutely stunning bold print. Isn't it gorgeous? I was, wow, this is so much me, and it would go beautiful with that black silk jersey that I just showed you. So I was like, wow, this is my fabric, no doubt about it. But anyway, so I bought it, I got a great price, absolutely in love. Then of course, because I'm such a sloppy person, when I was eating lunch with Kyle after we had been to Metro Textile, I noticed that I had a soda in my backpack where I had also stored the fabrics, and that soda had leaked, and it was a brown soda, Dr. Pepper. Yes, I love it. And it had soaked in the fabric, so it had like a brownish tint, but that wasn't the biggest problem. It also soaked into the denim that I've also bought. I'm going to talk about in just a minute. And you know, denim, that bleeds. So it was brown and blue. And yeah, I was absolutely devastated. I tried to soak it back in the hotel room using soap. Of course, that didn't release all the colors, especially not the denim. So when I got back to Sweden, I treated it with stain removers, and I managed to remove some, but there is still spots of the denim, blue-black color still left, a bit of a bummer. Also, because I used so much stain remover, I also started to notice that it kind of began paling the black, if you know what I mean, because it sort of sucked out the color of that as well. So now I am sort of, it depends on the day how I'm feeling basically. If I'm going to give up on this fabric, because I should have bought more, but I was so busy doing other stuff, and then the week was over and I was able to get back to it, which is a big bummer. So to be honest, I don't really know what to do about this now. I think I can work around the stains. I think I could do, I had planned to do like a skirt, but I'm not 100% sure if it's worth it, because I can still see the slight brown tints as well. It depends on the light basically. I mean, it's no fun to have like almost like a dirty looking fabric. I mean, I guess it looks fine on the camera, but close up, you know, you can really see all the stains. So, and as I said, I can't really manage to do more stain removal now, because I do feel that this will make the black turn also really washed out. So yeah, such a big bummer. We'll see about that. I'm of two minds, and if you have any ideas, I'd love to know. A little bit depressing, but anyways, that was not the only fabric. As I said, I also bought some denim that was also helped coloring that white fabric. This is a really nice broken twill denim. It has a little bit of a stretch, not too much, because that's what I like. I like a little bit of stretch, and I also like it to have a decent heavy weight. And this fabric definitely checks the boxes. I will use this for one of the projects that I'm doing for my upcoming book about sewing jeans. Stay tuned for that, out in the spring of 2020, fingers crossed. And so this is what I'm going to do with that. So it was really nice to find that, because finding good quality, like heavier denim in Sweden is still a bit of a struggle. I actually often travel to Denmark to get my hands on some garment industry denim, because for some reason they don't really sell it in Sweden, but they do sell it in Denmark. I don't know exactly what type of jeans I will make out of these. Perhaps a straight leg. I can't do, I think, like a super stretchy jeans, because the stretch amount is definitely not lend itself to like super stretchy jeans. You can see just a little bit like this, but overall a really nice denim quality. And speaking of denim, Kyle also took me to some absolutely amazing Notion stores. So I actually stocked up with some really good denim hardware that I'm also going to use for my book. Different type of buttons, different type of rivets, because I will talk a lot about that also in my book. So it was good to have a bigger selection of that than I can find in Sweden. So I'm very excited about that. So stay tuned for it. I also actually bought some really fun stuff. Varsity letters. If I actually tried to make those myself a couple of years back. I also did a blog post about that one. It was fun. I wasn't 100% happy with it, but I definitely think that for a first try it was kind of good. But these are actually the letters of myself and my daughter's names. So I think I'm going to do some custom made sweaters using these letters. Actually, and speaking of Kyle, that I talked about, that I met up, she has actually already used these. So again, if you go over to her Instagram, you will find actually examples of how this look on a already made up make. I will not be this quick. This will probably be a Christmas present for my kids. We'll see. But I was really happy to find these letters as well. And you know what? Kyle also gave me some amazing sewing gifts that I am very excited to share with you. So many cool stuff. And if you watch some of my old videos, you will actually perhaps recognize what a few of these refers to. One of my latest live streams, I talked about what I thought was called a Jean-A-Ma-Jig, but it's apparently called a Jean-A-Ma-Jig. 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 I still can't say this properly. We had a lot of fun about that in the live stream. And I'm sure some of you are already familiar with what this is, but if not, it's a great tool to use when you're sewing over bulky lace, because this one will even out the presser foot. So when you're sewing over bulky seam, you know, the presser foot will be slightly slanted, and the result is usually bad feeding, skip stitches, all that bad stuff. It's also called a hump jumper, and there's actually several different versions of this nifty tool. Mine that came with my sewing machine looks like this. This is you put behind the presser foot to raise it up. The good thing about this one is that it's buildable, so you can do 1, 2 or 3 depending on how much you need to level the presser foot. But the advantage of this one is that it's much more stable, because you can actually put it under the entire presser foot because of how it's constructed. And there's also slanted version as well, which I have not tried myself, but I'm really curious to hear what are your thoughts. But it's also called a hump jumper, Jean-A-Ma-Jig, and there are probably some other names as well. I do love it because it's such a funny name, and I was very thoughtful of Kyle to remember this and gift me this gift. Thank you so much for your generosity, Kyle. And I also got some other amazing things. Again, this is also a reference to live shows where we talked about different type of ways to do tracing, and she recommended this, which I had never heard of. It's from a Japanese brand, and it's called Chakoner. So it's a little bit like this tailored tracing wheel, but the wheel is really tiny, and it also comes with a really cute brush like this. We can brush away the chalk, and I have just done a quick demo of it yet, so I haven't gone doing it like full force, but I will say it's a very nice, very exact tool. Really also super cute because it's the heart shaped. I love a lot of the Japanese sewing tools. They just put a lot more effort into the design, don't they? And I very much appreciate that. So she gave me even more than I'm so touched because I got so many things from her. I feel that I just want to cry inside because I was so touched by it. These are actually also seam allowance rulers, because that's something we have talked about as well. I think I have done a video about how to add seam allowance, and I've also talked about this in my live streams, which by the way I do one usually the last Sunday each month, so stay tuned for that. You can check out. I always give a shout out, heads up on my YouTube channel and my blog and my Instagram. All the stuff I will tell you when it's going. Also, you can subscribe to my newsletter. Again, I will also tell you when my upcoming live show is. But anyways, such great tools. This is a 3/8 inches. And I love how the curves are. So this is definitely going to make adding seam allowance much more enjoyable. I had one old one, but that has really gone pale. And this one actually looks way better. So again, thank you so much, Kyle. And if you do a lot of pattern drafting, or like me, you live in Europe and you have to add seam allowance, and I think the same goes for Japan and a lot of other countries as well, where you add seam allowance, you should definitely think about investing in some type of tools, because they do make it much more pleasant. And I actually got even more gifts from Kyle. And this again pertains to some of the discussions we had in the live streams I'm having. And this seems like a super cool tool. What it is a mat that you place on the bed of your sewing machine, and it just makes everything smooth, because you know how things can get stuck in the feed dogs when you're sewing. I have this problem when I'm adding silicone elastic to silicone stoppers to when I'm sewing activewear, for instance, when I'm doing bike shorts. And this is actually made for quilters, but Kyle works a lot with she does a lot of bags using leather and synthetic leather, which again is a fabric that doesn't really feeds well. It tends to get a little bit of stuck, and this is apparently, she says, a fantastic way of doing that. And the product is called free motion slider with pink tacky back. So you place it on the bed and it covers pretty much anything. Machine quilting is easy with the Supreme slider. The original zero friction top fabric slides easily, and it's self-sticking, easy to install and remove. And it's developed by national award-winning quilter and teacher Pat Lapierre. Wow! I love when sews are so being inventive and really see like a gap in the market and come up with a really nifty tools. I've seen many examples of this, and it's wonderful to see a way of doing that. So I can't wait to try this out. It seems absolutely fantastic. And if you have problems using materials that doesn't feed well on your regular sewing machine, this could definitely be an option. It is made for quilters, but it's apparently works for any type of situation where your fabric might not feed optimal. So really cool. I'm really looking forward to try this one again. So again, thank you so much, Kat. So these were the things that I brought back from New York. As I said, I do feel a bit bad about not being more organized into doing like a proper sewing meter, because I know several of you watching are also living in the New York area. But sometimes, first of all, I'm always a little bit stressed before I'm traveling, and secondly, I felt that I perhaps felt a bit self-conscious of why would people take time to meet up with me. And anyways, but if I do go to New York again, which I definitely hope I will, because I do love this city so much, and there were so many sewing things that I weren't able to do, because I could probably spend several days just in the garment district. But I will definitely be more organized the next time and make sure that I can arrange some type of meetup and see if it will wonderful if more of you will be able to come and we could do this together. So hopefully there will be a next time for New York. It will probably take a few years because wow, it's so expensive there. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe for weekly sewing videos. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!